Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, we begin with night 3 of the Republican National Convention, where Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, was introduced to the nation.
I'm overwhelmed with gratitude to say I officially accept your nomination to be Vice President of the United States of America.
And in his acceptance speech, the Ohio senator drew on his rural roots, blaming President Biden and past administrations for leaving working-class voters behind.
Thanks to these policies that Biden and other out-of-touch politicians in Washington gave us, our country was flooded with cheap Chinese goods, with cheap foreign labor, and in the decades to come, deadly Chinese fentanyl. Joe Biden screwed up, and my community paid the price.
And then J.D. Vance went after the business community.
We're done, ladies and gentlemen, catering to Wall Street. We'll commit to the working man. We're done importing foreign labor. We're going to fight for American citizens and their good jobs and their good wages.
The vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance added the GOP is done sacrificing supply chains to global trade and is committed to manufacturing products in the U.S. The Biden campaign responded to Vance's speech by calling him unprepared, unqualified, and willing to do anything to meet Donald Trump's demands.
Well, Nathan, Donald Trump will speak tonight and formally accept the Republican presidential nomination for a third time. It'll be his first speech since the assassination attempt last weekend. The Trump campaign says the former president changed his address after the attempt on his life to make it more unifying. Follow Bloomberg for live coverage of former President Donald Trump's acceptance speech on the final night of the Republican National Convention on Bloomberg's Balance of Power with Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lyles. Complete team coverage begins at 8 p.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Radio and television.
On the Democratic side, Karen, President Biden continues to face questions about his ability to serve. In an interview with BET, the president said he is willing to relinquish power to Vice President Kamala Harris in a second term under one scenario.
So I have some medical condition that emerged. If the doctors came to me and said, you got this problem, that problem.
Now, those comments from President Biden came before the White House announced he's tested positive for COVID. The White House says his symptoms are mild and the president is isolating at his home in Delaware.
While the president deals with COVID, Nathan, he's also facing intensifying pressure within his own party to step aside from the race. Prominent House Democrat Adam Schiff of California released a statement to the Los Angeles Times that Biden should let another candidate run. Over the weekend, Schiff was caught at a fundraiser, saying the president needed to pass the torch.
I do not think he is the best person to go into this election. I think if he is our nominee, I think we lose.
Congressman Adam Schiff says he's concerned Biden's candidacy could affect other Democrats down ballot.
And Karen, Congressman Schiff is a close ally to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And according to CNN, Pelosi has told the president privately that polling shows he cannot defeat Donald Trump and could destroy Democrats' chances of winning the House in November. ABC News is reporting Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told the president last week it would be best if he ended his reelection bid.
Well, Nathan, Senate Leader Schumer is also calling on New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez to resign after his conviction on bribery and foreign agent charges. NBC News has reported that Menendez told allies he intends to resign, but the senator told CBS New York that he has not resigned, nor has he spoken to, quote, so-called allies. A jury convicted Menendez on 16 counts this week after a 2-month trial.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is calling for new leadership, Karen, at the Secret Service. It comes after the assassination attempt on former President Trump. Bloomberg's Amy Morris has the details on that from Washington.
Senator Mitch McConnell posted on X that the shooting was, in his words, a grave attack on American democracy and that new leadership at the Secret Service would be an important step. House Committee on Oversight and Accountability Chairman James Comer has subpoenaed Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle to appear at a hearing on Monday. Lawmakers say they'll hold a bipartisan probe focused on the Secret Service, and President Biden ordered an independent probe. The Homeland Security Inspector General also opened its own investigation. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Amy, thank you. We want to turn to markets now, and NASDAQ futures are higher with chipmaker Taiwan Semiconductor restoring sentiment in tech. It follows the worst day for the NASDAQ 100 since 2022. Traders were spooked over concerns about tight U.S. restrictions on chip sales to China, but TSMC reported earnings that beat analyst estimates and raised projections for full-year revenue growth in a show of confidence in the artificial intelligence boom.
As for the broader economy, Karen, traders are getting bullish about a September rate cut after comments from Fed Governor Christopher Waller. He told an audience in Kansas that the U.S. can tame inflation without dipping into a recession.
I believe the current data are consistent with achieving a soft landing, and I'll be looking for data over the next couple of months to buttress that view. So while I don't believe we have reached our final destination, I do believe we are getting closer to the time when a cut in the policy rate is warranted.
Fed Governor Chris Waller's comments echo those of other policymakers who are broadly optimistic about inflation, but waiting for more positive data in the coming weeks.
Well, rates are also in focus overseas, Nathan, with a decision from the European Central Bank this morning. Bloomberg's Lizzie Burden says a cut today is unlikely, but ECB President Christine Lagarde could hint at a move in September.
Markets and economists expect the European Central Bank to keep interest rates on hold at its July meeting today, though traders will listen closely for clues as to whether a September move is coming. Even the hawkish end of the Governing Council has said market pricing for 2 more moves this year looks reasonable. But President Christine Lagarde is unlikely to want to box herself in on timing, so will probably reiterate that the central bank is data dependent. A key question is whether she reintroduces the ECB's easing bias. In Frankfurt, Lizzie Burden, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Lizzie, thank you. And finally, make no bones about this one. Citadel founder Ken Griffin paid Sotheby's $44.6 million for a near-complete Stegosaurus fossil at auction, a 150-million-year-old dinosaur nicknamed Apex. Griffin plans to put it on display at a museum. His bid marks a record sum for a fossil sold at auction, even going back to the Jurassic era.
Time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. For that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. For the second straight week, communities in upstate New York have been slammed by severe storms and tornadoes. Dozens of buildings have been destroyed and 9 tornadoes confirmed near Syracuse and Rochester. In Rome, New York, Governor Kathy Hochul said tens of thousands of customers in the affected areas are still without power.
This is an urgent situation. When the heat is as hot as it is right now, people need their power back on. So we are focused intensely on making sure that happens as soon as humanly possible.
At least one person died in the storms. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gerskovich has appeared in court in Russia for the second hearing in his trial on espionage charges. Gerskovich, his employer, and the U.S. government vehemently deny the charges against him. Gerskovich was accused by the Russian Prosecutor General's office of gathering secret information on orders from the CIA about a plant that produces and repairs tanks and other military equipment. The journalist was detained while on a reporting trip in March of 2023. The U.S. Navy has exonerated more than 250 black sailors found to be unjustly punished in 1944 following a California port explosion that killed hundreds of service members. The blast killed 320 sailors and civilians, nearly 75% of whom were black, and injured another 400 personnel. Navy Secretary Carlos Del Toro.
This decision clears their names, restores their honor, and acknowledges the courage they displayed in the face of immense danger.
The punishments kept them from receiving honorable discharges. 50 sailors who held their demands for safety and training were tried as a group on charges of conspiracy to commit mutiny. They were convicted and sent to prison. Researchers studying tens of thousands of patients found that people who have irregular sleep patterns, say 5 hours of sleep one night, 10 hours of sleep the next night, have a more than 30% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Dr. Sina Kiansi is with Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston.
Our findings have the potential to improve diabetes prevention on multiple levels. Clinically, they might inform better patient care and treatment plans.
Dr. Kianursi says the study was on patients in the United Kingdom. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Karen.
All right, Michael Barr, thank you. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update with John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. It's a typical cloudy, brisk day in Scotland. The players are bundled up for the start of the Open Championship. 152nd edition, 10th time it's being held at Royal Troon. And early on, Justin Thomas, Matt Wallace, Young Han Song share the lead. 3 under par. This is the last major of the year. Bryson DeChambeau has so far finished 6th at the Masters, 2nd at the PGA, and last month he won the U.S. Open. DeChambeau has just teed off. Rory McIlroy is about to. And later this morning, world number 1 Scottie Scheffler excited to be playing links golf.
I just feel like you have to be more creative here, and I love that part of it. I feel like when I do come over here, this is really kind of how golf was intended to be played. I feel like there's a lot more opportunity for shot making and being creative around the greens.
Scheffler's already won 6 tournaments this year. He's trying to be just the 4th since 1980 to win the Masters and the Open the same year. He's the first since Tiger Woods in 2013 to be the betting favorite going into all 4 majors. London, the next stop for the U.S. Olympic basketball team. They'll play exhibition games there on Saturday and Monday. Then a week from Sunday, it's the opener in Paris against Serbia, who the U.S. just beat easily, 105-79. Steph Curry scored 24 points. Caitlin Clark has often been compared to Curry, and last night she did something no WNBA player has ever done before. Clark had 19 assists. She also scored 24 points, although Indiana lost to last place Dallas. Pat Williams has passed away at 84, longtime NBA exec with Philadelphia and then Orlando. Represented the Magic 3 times when they won the draft lottery, landing them Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, and Dwight Howard. Williams also wrote over 100 books, ran 58 marathons, and he and his wife had 19 children, 14 of them adopted from foreign countries. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Karen, Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager. It is a tale of 2 campaigns as the Republican National Convention heads to its conclusion tonight. Donald Trump is set to accept his party's nomination for a 3rd time after surviving an assassination attempt and cementing his populist hold on the Republican Party, while President Biden finds himself sidelined by COVID and under fast-growing pressure to bow out of the race. Joining us for more, Bloomberg Breaking News Managing Editor Derek Wallbank. Derek, good morning. Let's start with the convention. What are your takeaways from what we saw from J.D. Vance last night, his acceptance speech as running mate, and this populist message that, he's solidifying for former President Trump?
Well, Nathan, I think that J.D. Vance is somebody who has been a staunch ally of Donald Trump. Remember, he's the sort of person who was running in a very crowded primary field when he wanted to be a senator from Ohio. Trump picked him to be endorsed. He goes on, gets that nomination, gets the win, gets into the Senate, becomes one of Donald Trump's most fervent supporters, and eventually now rewarded with the VP nomination. But Vance hasn't been in the political scene for all that long. So this was a chance for J.D. Vance to introduce himself to the public writ large. And he went with a very biography-heavy introduction. A guy who first came to prominence from having written his own biography, Hillbilly Elegy, talking about his experiences and the sort of appellation, how did everybody lose the working person, things of that nature. And he sort of tried to tie that into Trump's appeal. One of the things I saw from Vance and from other speakers, Marco Rubio was one who really did this, was they were trying to sort of verbally set up a permission structure for people who may not have liked Trump before, but to come on board with this. And you actually saw this a little bit from Nikki Haley the other day as well, right? Set up a pathway for people who have not been there for Trump, who are sitting there, don't really like the idea of Biden either, have serious reservations about the president, right now to vote for the former president instead. So that was kind of rhetorically where he was going. I think, the most memorable parts of it, though, was when he was talking about his take no prisoners mama, his grandmother who helped raise him, and then when he spotlighted his own mother, who struggled with substance abuse and has been clean now for on about 10 years. Those were very, very popular moments at the convention among the attendees there. We'll see how it all resonates among the general public when we get some post-convention polls. But this was J.D. Vance's moment to make a name for himself.
And Donald Trump's moment comes tonight. I mean, this really could be another one of those so-called moments. His first speech after getting grazed by a bullet last weekend, Derek.
Yeah, and now Trump has made appearances, each night of the convention, but this is the first time that we're going to get to hear from him. This is somebody who, look, whether you like him or you don't like him, is somebody who has a reputation well earned for showmanship, former television host. You should expect the stage management of this to be nailed down, right? And again, as I say, Nathan, Trump. The nation has had 4 years of Donald Trump as president. If you like him or if you don't like him, you know what you're getting, right? Like there's nobody in the United States who doesn't know who Donald J. Trump is. But this is also a guy who, for the first time really in his electoral history, finds himself as a general election favorite. Right? He never was against Hillary Clinton. She was favored the entire way, according to polls and analysts and things like that. Trump now is in a situation where the betting markets are saying that he's likely to win. You're seeing movements and all of that. And so this is a different position for him. He's also come off of a time when he was literally shot in the ear, giving a speech. We're in uncharted moments here for Donald Trump. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in how he handles this.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed at 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.